Class 201 on the Golden Doves. We're at page 121 on the bottom of the page. We were dealing with the fact that the text in the Torah is not vocalized. And because the text is not vocalized, it's up to the reader to supply the vowels, right? And everything that implies. The semiotic and the semantic are two. So we said this semiotic reading. Semiotic reading is where there are vowels, and basically the text is saying, read me like this. And the semantic reading, where you have to put the letters together because there are no vowels, and then you have the possibility of interpretation, right? So the semiotic and the semantic are two disconnected, that is, autonomous systems. That's interesting. In the arts, such as painting and music, there was only semantics, but no semiotics, and the presence of ambiguity, right? So you hear a musical composition, your mind has to know how to process the notes and put them together, right? Some people are missing that function in their brain, and they can't connect the notes together, and therefore they can't hear music. I mean, they can hear, they just can't process it as music. Also in art, visual arts, you need to know how to process the painting. So for example, Cubism or Expressionism or Impressionism, there's always going to be some ambiguity, less so in classical art, but there's always going to be some ambiguity, and you're going to need to interpret what's happening here, right? And suddenly it appears, you see it. In this context, I should mention that my father once explained to me that the word pokeach doesn't mean to see. It means to process what you're already seeing. So vatipakachna inesh enehem, they saw before that they were naked, but they didn't process it as such. So pokeach is different than to see. There's lirot and there's pokeach. So here, this is the idea of pokeach, to be able to process things. In animal communication, in artificial languages such as the Morse code or symbolic language, there was only semiotics, but no semantics, hence ambiguity is excluded, right? So that's in animal systems. The uniqueness of language stems from the fact that it alone comprises both the semantic and the semiotic. So in language, what you have is you have both semiotic and semantic. This is from Emil Benveniste. We studied this earlier in the book. It uses the same sign, the word, to accomplish both these systems. Hence, although conceptually disconnected, by partaking of the same symbol, these two systems are semiologically linked, right? Because a word can have like a dictionary meaning. This is what it means. This is how, or a conventional meaning. This is how we conventionally understand it. But then a word might allude to something else at the non-conventional level. And then there's always that ambiguity. So when you use a word, what did you mean? Which one of the possible meanings was being referred to? So you have the conventional meaning of a word in the sense that it's used, but then there's always a possibility that you use the word to intimate something, right? Right. Pointedly, Saadia Gaon and Maimonides took ofanav to be a dual, not a plural, right? Because the pasuk says, I think there's a misprint here. Ofanav. I'm just going to fix this here for the future editions. I'm sorry. Okay. For those of you using the book, there's a misprint here. So ofanav. So it says Tapuchei zahav b'maskiyot kasef davar dabur or dabur al ofnav. Let me read the pasuk. This is in Mishle, and this is the idea of the golden apples in the silver mesh. It's like a word that's speaking on its various sides. Now, ofnav, Rabbeinu Saadia Gaon explains it. It's referring to two. It's a duality. It's not many. It's not plural, right? So, for example, the word na'alayim, it's duality, right? So, raglaim, it's duality. Let me just find the pasuk. I'm sorry. So, Yud Mishle, Perek Kaf He, pasuk Yod Aleph. Perek Kaf He, pasuk Yod Aleph. תפוחי זהב במשכיות כסף, דבר, דבור, על אופניו. I read it correctly. דבר, בית רפויה, דבור, על אופניו. Right? So, אופניו here means dual, not plural. Right? The perception of language as a semiological apparatus organizing two distinct systems, right? The two systems here being the semiotic and the semantic, is intimately related to the perception of the book and its commentaries. In rabbinic tradition, scripture is expressive at both the semiotic and the semantic levels. The first level corresponds to peshat, the literal or generally accepted sense of scripture. The other level corresponds to derasha, interpretation, the rabbinic method of scriptural exegesis. Arabic-speaking Jews associate derasha with ta'wil, exposition, non-literal interpretation. Ta'wil. Yeah. The purpose of peshat is to expand the mind of the author as expressed in the text, and that would be the semiotic reading. And in that reading, you need vowels, right? That's one of the ofanim of the Tapuchei Zahav b'Maskiot Kasef. The derasha interprets the text independently of the intention of the author. At this level, the elements of the text do not convey the meaning which they had at the semiotic level. The sense of the derasha is not the sum of the value of each of its components in isolation, right? So in 1 + 1 = 2, right? So that's a sum. When you juxtapose words and you connect words together, it's not a mathematical or geometrical equation. As in all semantic composition, and the example I was bringing is Es Chaim. So the idea of Es Chaim is not reducible neither to tree nor to life, but Es Chaim is a new idea, it's a new concept, right? As in all semantic compositions, the element of the derasha acquires significance only through syntagmatic opposition and is context bound. Every opposition, midrash and midrash, is context bound, taught the rabbis. As with the oraculum, it is the text itself speaking to the reader. At this level, there is no objective meaning. One may not raise objections against an agadah or derashas of the rabbis. Interpretation is subjective. It is the creative composition of the reader functioning as an author. We'll stop here.